Good morning, and it is Friday, February 2nd, Groundhog Day, yes,
Yes.
right, which way does it work?
Doesn't it feel like, I think
Groundhog's decade, when it comes to actually 50, sorry. I don't know which way it works, if you see a shadow. don't
If you see the shadow, it goes back in winter for longer. Doesn't see a shadow, good more spring, summer sooner.
apparently he did not see the shadow.
That's what I spring, summer.
Yeah, spring sooner. That's what I,
Excellent.
that's what I heard.
This is, I want to stop right there, that's a positive, forecast. So it's Friday, February 2nd, 2024, it's 9:05 AM, and we're, picking up our work on F308 and that relating to updates to land use planning. We have council with us, Mr. Chakowski, good morning. We have a great draft in front of us, we heard some high level responses to it yesterday, and now. Given that you have 1 hour with us, well, now less than that, 55 minutes. is that right?
I've purchased you some additional time.
Thank you. With cryptocurrency or, yeah, however it works, how much time, whatever time you have. If you can sort of walk us through at the right level, try to read it from end to end. I'm guessing that's like 35,000 feet.
Alan Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel, I actually want, it would be helpful to me for you to guide how to do this, because this bill is 100. S-308
You know what, let's take,
is 119 pages.
so how about, yes. Let's just slow down and do a regular walkthrough and then we'll have to follow up unless,
Okay, so
what makes,
the language in this bill does not line up. So I'm not sure if that is helpful,
well,
because multiple sections conflict.
Yeah.
And there are multiple gaps. So I'm not sure if that's helpful to do word by word.
probably not. We were talking about trying to do it at a higher level, so
Right.
we would just see all the parts.
Okay,
And then, President Watson.
Wondering
Yeah.
if it makes sense, cause I'm guessing you have all of the places of conflict in your head. Or some list of,
It's closer than us.
Yeah.
and look, you also know where the gaps are. Me. No, okay, alright,
I don't think I'm an expert at this bill yet.
okay.
I wrote it on Monday.
Okay.
I have not read it through it, well,
You're amazing.
I read it through end to end once. I have not since then.
But, well, we're picking it up and learning on the fly, so it's a little different than regular, but I feel like it's okay. How about if we pick an intermediate altitude, so we see the whole bill and then as we need more information, or
Okay.
if you wanna flag something like, this doesn't really actually agree with that, so you may wanna mark it to come back, then without getting into what the issue is, we can just flag it and stuff like that.
Okay. Okay, and I'll also, I guess, explain how I did this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first 40 pages come almost verbatim from H687 in the House. Okay. So the request I heard was produce language that reflects the reports, plural, that have come out. That includes the Act 250 Natural Resources Board report, the future land use map report, the designated area report. So no one had requested that I draft those language previously. So I did look to other previously drafted sort of language. And the chair did also ask for the appeals language that is in the House's version of at H687.
Put appeals on the table, even if we don't know where we're going.
So big picture, that's the first 50-ish pages, then it goes into the language from the Regional Planning Commission on future land use mapping. And review of those plans, and then it goes into language from the designated area report. So I had not previously drafted specifically the language regarding the tiers in the Natural Resources Board necessary updates report.
Mhm.
There is some language here that is similar in structure to it, though not verbatim, not right, so, and so I'll go through this, but that's broadly where this is going. So the appeals language I'm going to walk through in this first part professionalizes the Natural Resources Board, making it a 5-member paid board with 1 full-time chair and 4 half-time members. It's the same language that got vetoed last year. I think it might have been vetoed another time as well. The House has been working on professionalizing the Natural Resources Board for 3 or 4 years at this point, so. It's familiar language for this committee, so. Page 1, section 1, this is adding a purpose section to Act 250. This is similar language to what has been seen in the past. It's not directly related to this specific topic.
When you, thank you, when you say in the past, do you mean, active exists now or just in previous drafts of?
This specific language actually on page 1 came out of the Act 250 next 50 years report.
Okay,
The bill that came out of that report was vetoed. So
thank you.
in 2020,
2020, I think,
What a-
2019.
what a great year that was. Page 2 is what I was just talking about. This is the language that starts to change the Natural Resources Board. It renames it to the Environmental Review Board. And it will administer the Act 250 program and hear appeals. Although that's not entirely the case, it also will hear. There's also a provision in here for the board to also approve and review regional plans as part of this tiered concept. So just to take a step back again, the program that is proposed in the necessary updates report or the NRB report on the tiers leaves some significant gaps as to policy decisions. So there is discussion of review of future land use plans and regional plans in general. I think you heard yesterday from the RBCs that there is currently no direct oversight of their regional planning and sort of review and enforcement on them. And so there has been lots of discussion on that. One of the options is having the NRB or the ERB be the body that provides oversight to them. Oversight, so regional planning commissions and their regional plans and future land use map, and so there is language on that a little bit later in this bill.
Okay, I wouldn't really thought about who reviews regional plans.
So currently nobody does. The in 2000, I'm gonna get the year, 2009. Prior to 2009, there was something called the Council of Regional Commissions, which was a body that did sort of function as sort of an oversight body. It was 1 member from each regional commission. And they also would handle disputes. That body was repealed. I'm not sure why. I don't know what the discussion was at that time. That was quite a long time ago. Since then, there have been a couple other times where people have tried to look into should the regional planning commissions have a direct oversight. But currently there isn't specifically someone. Obviously, they are made up of member towns and the members are part of the council, the commission, and they are the ones reviewing the work in the regional plans and voting on it. There isn't a layer above them.
Within the council.
The council of regional commissions.
Right?
So I think the language on page 2 has nothing to do with that really. It's changing the NRB to the ERB, as I just said, a full-time chair, 4 half-time members with experience in environmental science, natural resource law, etc. The governor shall appoint the members of the board. And they will serve 5-year staggered terms. And then what this also does is it creates a different process than what currently happens. It's similar to how judges are appointed. It creates a nominating committee to review applicants and then send the list of applicants to the governor. So then the governor can make choices from that list. And so the next section actually establishes that nominating committee. And so that's section 3.
Awesome.
Do we have a nominating committee already? Could this be added to the list of things that they interview for?
So there are actually multiple nominating committees.
Okay.
So there's the the judicial board, and they review judges
Yeah.
as well as the PUC commissioner.
Right.
So that is, this language is slightly different. It's actually modeled after the Cannabis Control Board nominating committee. So actually the language in section 3 is nearly identical to that board. So there's a policy choice here because this NRB, ERB will actually be a quasi judicial body like the PUC. So there's an argument that that is similar to what the Judicial Nominating Board does. I believe there was testimony either last year or the year before that they may need additional resources, or they don't do the kind of interviewing for a judge is specific legal qualifications and history on your legal service perhaps, whereas this is a more diverse board. There's no requirement that they be lawyers. There's a requirement that they have some kind of background in environmental science, land use planning, engineering, something like that, but it is a sort of a different thing. And so that's why this bill, the House's bill, has language modeling it after the Cannabis Control Board, which is a sort of lay board rather than non-quasi judicial. So it's made up of 2 members from the executive branch, 2 members from the House, and 2 members from the Senate. So that is a policy consideration. Then it goes into the board shall adopt rules of procedure for appeals and contested cases and rules of procedure for approving regional plans and regional plan maps.
Quick question on that, the appointment in terms, stuff like that. So we're not doing staggered, stuff like that.
Yes,
We are,
yes. They're staggered 5-year terms.
This is for the ERB.
they. Oh, sorry, I was thinking the nominating.
Okay, so the nominating
Yeah,
committee
I-
does not have staggered
Yeah,
years.
I get it,
No.
that fits.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and then as I sort of also already previewed, in section 5, the powers of the board, it is adding the authority for them to hear appeals of district commission decisions, as well as jurisdictional opinions. And then it also gives them the authority to review applications for planned growth areas. And I'll come back to that, review application. With review. What I just mentioned, the regional plan and future land use maps in the regional plans. So. And apparently the language on page 12 conflicts, so that's one place. Put a star there, so. Planned growth area is the term that H687 uses.
Sorry, what page, where are we?
So I'm talking,
Oh, oh.
I'm 35, I mean, I'm on page sort of 12 and 13.
Yeah.
But big picture.
Yeah, I got it.
So the NRB report recommends a tiered system called tier 1A and tier 1B, tier 2 and tier 3. The House's version H687 has a similar but slightly different concept. And it's the term planned growth area. So planned growth area is a term that's also used in the future land use map report and the designated area report. So this is one area where this is one place where the terms may not all line up.
Right.
So the House's bill essentially planned growth area means tier 1A. It is an area that a municipality can apply for to be designated where within that area there's an Act 250 exemption. There's additional language much later in the bill, but this is the first time it's being seen because the process of this draft is setting up is that the Natural Resources Board or the ERB would review applications by a municipality to have an area designated as a planned growth area for the Act 250 exemption. This is a policy area where there is, in my opinion, a gap between the report, in the reports. There are sort of competing visions for how that process would play out.
And who is bringing forward the request for a planned growth area? Municipality or the RP?
In this version on page 12, it's the municipality.
And that's already specified.
Yes. So there are conflicting provisions, but that's the House's proposal.
Thank you. Do you, it seems to me that just to start aligning things like. I'm thinking like, can we just replace designated plan, or I'm sorry, planned growth area with tier 1A, but it occurs to me that. I think we want them to review applications of all kinds for all. Like perhaps the default is tier 2. And you would apply, well, the tier 3 is gonna hopefully be some automatically set things. Though I think you probably still want a petition process, I'm spitballing here a bit, but we might want a petition process for tier 3, but to get to be tier 1A or 1B, I think you'd wanna go through a review, an application process. And I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, it's a great question, let's mark,
Okay.
let's try to capture this stuff as we go.
Well,
Well, that's why I don't know,
And then a
looking at the
couple-
specific language of
back.
this bill is helpful because I don't know what your intent is. And multiple other people outside the community are having conversations that conflict, or at least don't fully line up. So there are decisions to be made, and so there's language in this bill that you could choose from. The language in this bill is close-ish to what you were just describing, not entirely.
okay,
What the House is currently working on is, yes, there's automatically and so it is similar broadly to what's happening, the conversations out there, which is the regional land use maps need to map these concepts of the different land use types. Settled area with lots of stuff. Important natural resources, critical resource areas that need protection and additional levels of review. Everything else is automatically tier 2, though this bill has another phrase for that, working rural and working lands. So then under this proposal that I was just referencing, municipality would need to go to the ERB to get it permanently designated for their Act 250 exemption area. But it's supposed to, we'll talk about the specific language later, which is it's supposed to line up with what is in the regional map. Which should show where their planned growth area is.
Sound like, okay,
There are other ways you can do that, though. I think one of the ways that is being proposed is sort of an automatic,
Designation.
yeah,
You want something more,
and then it's,
you sort of earn your way to it.
yeah. So, back to non-tier related things, then there's personnel given to the board. Then there's language about establishing the appeals process before the board, that's in section 9. Again, this is language that has been vetoed. It's the same language that was reviewed previously. Appeals for the jurisdictional opinion is in the next section. Section 11 has the fees, so the fees for appeals are $295. Fees for planning growth area designation are $250, as our regional planning commission filing fees. None of these fees will cover the cost of the work, so that is something that needs to be.
Sounds very modest fee for the amount of work entailed by reviewing the plan.
Where, sorry, I lost what page you were on with the fees.
22. I mean, this is, I'm already like almost halfway through the time, so. So then, there's some struck references, changing the name of the board. And then there are many pages, many pages that strike the environmental court's jurisdiction over Act 250 appeals. So just to remind you, this proposal, which you have already passed previously. It gives the ERB authority over hearing Act 250 appeals and jurisdictional opinions. It leaves at the environmental court all other environmental appeals, which are appeals from agency and natural resources decisions, as well as appeals of municipal zoning. So it does not eliminate the environmental court. That has never been a proposal that has been passed, as far as I'm aware. So this is a division, and it's actually going back to the prior system, so.
The environmental board did do A&R.
Correct. And so the environmental court, when it was formed, actually didn't hear Act 250 appeals for the first 15 or 20 years. The prior environmental board did. So removing jurisdiction from the environmental court is not intended to get rid of the court itself.
Just altering what goes to it.
Yes.
Thank you.
That takes us up to page 35, and so page 35, again, this is language from H 687 in the House. They've been calling the tiered system location-based jurisdiction, and so this is the specifics under that proposal with a couple of small adjustments. So first, the road rule is in this bill.
Yeah.
So the road rule, the language in this bill, which is on page 36 to 37, is the road rule that this committee, I believe, crafted in 2020. So your committee in 2020 spent a lot of time looking at the road rule. This is a 2,000-foot road rule of combination of roads and driveways. And I do just want to again flag, the road rule is a thing that used to exist under Act 250 and was eliminated in 2004. And there were strong reasons why it was eliminated. That prior road rule was 800 feet. I do think you'll need to spend time potentially, the language here is what has passed before, so, and was vetoed, so the language itself may not need work, but this is an interesting concept that you will need to look into a bit.
And what are the numbers, the length of the road?
2,000 feet, it's any combination of road or driveway that equals 2,000.
It has been
It had been 800.
for a single road or for a combination as well.
It was single
Yeah.
road.
5,180 equal mile.
Yeah,
40%.
and I believe the last time we discussed this, Senator Brand, after 2,000 feet is from here to Sarducci's.
Oh, yeah, right,
Oh, that's very helpful.
walk down, it's service.
Before or after eating?
Hey, not using the bike. Anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that's a very helpful visual, and thank you for getting it in. How much it occurs to a mile. Do you know? When we have this language in here. A road and a driveway. Mean the same thing? Or is okay, what? That's my only confusion is. I feel personally that a driveway, yes, the road rule, yes, if you've got a 2000. And you have a driveway, that's, I feel something that most Vermonters would get on board with. A road, however, though, that may be in combination with having maybe multiple parcels attached, could be a different conversation. Could you describe to me? When a driveway becomes a road or how it's regulated in this section?
Sure, so,
Oh, really? Oh, what? You said with
If
the
the town adopts it, it's become a road. If it's not adopted, it's not a road.
so, how much time do we have? So, this is part of the downfall of the prior road rule. There is language in here that tries to be specific. So if you wanna walk through the language right now, we can, but this committee did spend a lot of time trying to parse that out. So no, it is not using the highway system as we strictly know it when a town adopts it. There's. You can read,
Okay.
yes.
I realize this is a bigger kettle of fish of a question, so I will hold that question so we can proceed. But maybe I could have some institutional knowledge conversations from people who have served before, because I don't fully understand.
There was litigation over deciding what is road and driveway, and some of it is captured in this language.
That's helpful, thank you.
So let's keep going, but yeah, it's definitely. We could spend a lot of time talking about road and rules and. The road rule of the driveways. Figure out another good plan.
I think if you start to visualize it in your head, you can,
You can figure it out.
yeah, but also. Litigation, so on page 39,
It's a quote of the day.
that's litigation, I mean, the less things are clear, the more litigation there will be. So on page 39, this is where the language about the tiers is actually starting to be sort of fleshed out. Definition 50 is critical resource area, this is the house's version of tier 3. This is language they are actively working on in committee this week. And next week, and so this week. So yes, 3 different committee, well, anyways, so their current proposal for what constitutes tier 3 is a river corridor, a significant wetland. Land at or above 2,000 feet, characterized by steep slopes. An areas with prime agricultural soil. And areas containing all or part of connecting habitat, so I'm on page 39. So they are live working on this definition, they've taken a lot of testimony this week. Related to a lot of these concepts, so the NRB report. Recommends that tier 3 is important natural resources and doesn't necessarily give too many specifics. So this is what the house is currently their list.
Okay, I'm gonna. Having lunch with Chair Sheldon today, so be helpful, I'm gonna. Sync up on where they think they're landing, I don't know if they're, for instance, actually choosing to not adopt the language of tier 1A, 2, 3. And they're gonna stick with these terms, or what will come out the other end. But the definition is the meaningful thing, not the legal high terms. Have they talked about these? No, I'm gonna pull that. And I'll answer you. Thank
Alright,
you.
I haven't actually been present for most of their testimony because I've been here and the other committee working on Act 250, so. It's a lot of Act 250 work happening right now, I'm trying to keep track of it. Also on page 39, their tier 2 is what they're calling rural and working lands. And so that is an area that isn't a planned growth area or a critical resource area. And I do think that is consistent with proposals generally, is that tier 2 is sort of most of Vermont. And so under this proposal, it is using the already in a tier 2 or rural and working lands area, the existing Act 250 jurisdictional triggers plus the road rule will apply. So sort of default Act 250. And then also for critical resource area, the jurisdictional trigger here is any area that is a critical resource area. That is Act 250 automatic. So it is not a bar, it is not a prohibition on development. It's just automatic Act 250 jurisdiction if you're doing construction or subdivision.
In tier 2.
In tier 1,
In tier.
sorry, nope, so stop,
Tier 3.
tier 3.
Oh, sorry.
In the critical resource areas, any development or subdivision triggers Act 250 jurisdiction. In tier 2, the existing Act 250 triggers exist, so that would be 10 or more units of housing. Construction on one or more acres or 10 or more acres, depending on if it's a 1 acre or 10 acre town.
So basically the current model. For the moment, and tier 2 seems to be land that is not tier 1 or tier 3.
Yes. Everywhere else.
So, okay.
Do I understand correctly that tier 2 basically will remain unchanged? That's that's sort of the way it is now already.
Yes, and the road rule.
And what about, what's the extra level of protection for tier 3?
Any construction, regardless of the size of the parcel, triggers Act 250 jurisdictions.
Anything?
Yeah. Any development or subdivision triggers Act 250 jurisdiction. So,
I mean, and it doesn't now.
not necessarily.
There's a elevation line. Which,
Similar, yes. So currently, it is it's gonna operate very similarly to the elevation threshold, yes, where any construction improvements above certain elevation triggers Act 250. So how that would play out under this definition is any construction on a steep slope would trigger Act 250. Or any development on a parcel of primary agricultural soil would trigger Act 250. Or in a piece of connected habitat would trigger Act 250. Oh, actually, sorry, the phrase that they use is in or within 25 feet of the critical resource.
so,
It's a little buffer.
It's a small buffer because if you're actually building in a wetland, people should be concerned, right? Like if you're building in the river, would that actually happen, or in the middle of the wetland? Maybe, there's already existing permits that would highly dissuade you, but perhaps you're trying to build very, very close to it. That would still have an impact, so within 25 feet is where they have landed currently.
so the question then, this is all about jurisdiction rather than particular requirements or particular prohibitions.
Yep, it's the rest of Act 250 is remediation. Yeah. So the next section, section 19, spells out the requirements under 687 regarding planned growth area.
AKA tier 1.
Yes, and so I will say that last week, they have started adopting the concept of tier 1A and tier 1B, and so there's some of that is wedged in here. So if you look on page 40 to 41, it lists the requirements for what a municipality will need to demonstrate to get this designation. And so yes, they did add language last week saying to obtain tier 1A designation, you have to have all of the following things. So municipal plan, municipal flood hazard planning, flood hazard and river corridor bylaws, capital budget, permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws, urban form bylaws, historic preservation bylaws, wildlife habitat bylaws. Permitted water and wastewater systems with capacity. Adequate municipal staff to support the development review and having the regional plan done and approved by the board. For tier 1B, it is a subsection of a subset of those criteria. And so they're newly considering this sort of tier 1A, tier 1B distinction, but I will just say that what is here, I don't think is necessarily captured in the NRB report. Which is, this is a list of mostly bylaws that are attempting to match all of the criteria of Act 250. So that a municipality in their bylaws will be sort of functionally equivalent to Act 250 review.
And so that designation by virtue of recreating it at a local level.
Yes.
The other thing I'm noticing on page 40, for the requirements, you have to have X, Y, Z, in B and C. We're working in 213 on river corridors, floodplain, flood hazard area. I'm just flagging it for myself and on my copy to try to make sure we harmonize whatever we do in 213 with whatever you're feeling with. So I'm saying it aloud, so you can help us remember that too.
So this is then a designation process before the NRB, ERB, where the municipality has to come and bring all of the demonstrations of these requirements. It is similar to language we've considered before because this concept of a designated area with an Act 250 exemption is a concept that has been around since I started. And so we called it enhanced designation before or smart growth designation. So the required elements here, this may be the longest list that I've drafted, but it is similar. There's a consistent sort of spelling out of the municipality, it is an exemption from Act 250 on the premise that the municipality is taking over the same level of review that Act 250 has provided in the past.
Right.
It's assuming that that's taking place.
It is requiring demonstration that the bylaws of the community provide that level.
Call for,
Sure.
whether they actually do it.
So there is actually an interesting provision here. So the way that the House is structured, their proposal is that it freezes Act 250 jurisdiction. It doesn't remove it. So there's a provision that says Act 250 and A&R cannot enforce on a permit while it's in this designated area, unless the municipality refuses to enforce the permits adequately.
Oh.
So it's sort of the backstop on if the municipality takes this on and they're just letting people do whatever they want, Act 250 and A&R can reassert jurisdiction and begin enforcing again.
Has this been, in this suggestion all along, has this been part of this proposal?
What proposal?
Although the idea of letting the municipalities do the environmental review instead of Act 250.
Yes.
The idea that the A&R could intervene,
Oh,
always been there.
no, this is the House's most recent language. This
Okay.
is not in the NRB report, it's not in any of the other reports, this is the House's proposal that they're working on.
Okay, I don't feel so bad that I didn't know about it.
So what's the consequence if the town has in theory, accepted responsibility and they just, the town doesn't exercise it?
So this language that I've inserted here from the House's bill allows the NRB and A&R to step back in if the town isn't enforcing the permits.
There's there seems to be a never land in here where. You're gonna get the bulldozers out and make them do X, Y, and Z. And then the question is, how do you enforce it? Because it's already happened and it was an innocent mistake. And we're sorry. But
If you'd like to propose something to add to here, I'd be happy to hear
I
it.
just, is that what I've suggested? Kind of a never land in the language that hasn't been addressed?
No, I think the House has addressed it, but prior proposals haven't. If you'd like to add on it, you may.
Senator Watford, wait,
Thank you,
and then Senator.
just wanna say out loud that. Someday, when we are closer to wrapping this up, I'm visualizing a chart comparing this list of bylaws with the Act 250 criteria so that we can see how they line up. And we can have a visual for like, yes, this, criteria 9 is covered, whatever it is, like that's covered somewhere.
Okay, matching.
Like a matching, yeah, I think that would be, and it would also help us know if we have left gaps, so, but not for today, of course. Someday.
We visual learners.
Yes.
That's what makes, where. I've been listening and scanning, can you point, this backstop language out?
I didn't get there yet.
Okay,
So that is in,
Before we move on, but
yeah, Senator Crump.
this discussion today, we have defined it as 30,000 feet or so high elevation. I too, Senator, am interested in the details of how we would know and exactly who can be on, if we do know that the municipalities are not fully enforcing. I don't know if we need to get into those details now. At this point, I'm gonna say I'm happy with this provision. Well, I don't know if that's deep and we should.
Do.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm content to proceed with the discussion with the idea that this is a good idea.
Why?
Okay,
It's remarkable.
So,
How does the current use plan fit into the town's plan?
I don't know.
Well, if the town plan. So if land is in current use, can it? You don't know. I think I'd like to have a. Some rudimentary idea, but as we move forward here.
okay, I'm gonna make a note, checking on that. Let's keep going, because I know I'm gonna stop, let's get on our tracks. But I hear sort of the world weariness in your question inspired by generations of 8th grade students of saying, oh, well, it was a mistake, we went ahead, we built this shopping mall. Even though it wasn't allowed in the plan, and then somebody will say, well, it's there. And undoing where seems like we're very reluctant to undo and moving, in my experience. Maybe it happened more than I. Okay,
So, page 48, section 22 is the set of exemptions for this tier, as well as that language I just mentioned about the enforcement. The following section then establishes the process, this is language you have seen before, about transferring. Having the municipal permit add to. Having the municipal panel add to its permit, the Act 250 permit conditions, so that they are synced up, so that when the Act 250 jurisdiction is in providing oversight of those permit conditions, the municipality is the one who is supposed to oversee those permit conditions, because they have jurisdiction.
Supposed to.
Yeah. So next is moving on to the next sort of phase of this bill, which is related to the future land use maps from the regional planning commissions. And I can't really explain most of this language off the top of my head. So you will recall. So-
we're basically like page 50.
Yes.
Regional planning jobs.
Yeah. So, I can't explain the details of this off the top of my head. But you did have the future land use map report from the regional planning commissions, and the major purpose of that report was to provide consistency of terms and in how the RPCs map areas. So that as they undertake their next version of these future land use maps. All the maps will have the same terms so that they can all somewhat line up. So they've provided language on how to accomplish that. This is from the Regional Planning Commission group.
59H lays out a whole list of things you have to have in your plan.
Yes, so. So like jumping to page 59. It does provide the process here for, bless you, for adoption and review of the plans, so. A regional planning commission shall submit its regionally adopted regional plan to the ERB for determination. Of regional plan compliance with the following. A report documenting conformance with the goals established in 4302. And the plan elements established in 4348. A description of any changes to the future land use map. The definition of substantial regional impact. And a recommendation from the state downtown board. So they're also introducing this concept of mapping areas with substantial regional impact. I don't know a ton about that. But then also their proposal from the regional planning commissions is to involve the state downtown board, which currently involves the designated areas. They oversee designated areas, but they're having the regional plan go to the state downtown board and then go to the environmental review board.
Sounds almost vestigial, but maybe there's just some useful.
This is their language,
Okay,
so I think you should have them in here to explain.
yeah, we heard about it at sort of a high level yesterday, but it's good to know where the requirement. Also, I'm not quite sure how the municipal plans roll up into the regional plan or.
Well, so big picture, the regional plans and maps should happen first. After they've been adopted, in the process of their adoption, the municipalities themselves are supposed to review and provide comment. After they have been adopted, municipal plans are supposed to then conform to the regional plan. And the regional planning commissions review the town plans. So towns are supposed to comply with the regional plans.
Once they got input on sort of the initial version and then the updates,
Yes.
they'll check back in with the RIC.
Yeah. Now, well, yes. So then there's this review process, there's a process for the regional plan needs to, if the RPC needs to make minor changes to it. What happens if it gets denied? And so then. And so this in here, just so you know, the page 63, regional planning commission shall adopt a regional plan in conformance with this title by December 1, 2026. So again, this is the language that they themselves have proposed.
Yeah.
So. But just know, I do think the foundation of this proposal that is in all of the different committees, the regional plans are instrumental to varying degrees in all of them. So it does seem like the regional planning commissions are on board by having these maps finished by 2027. Depending on how you structure the rest of the tier process, I don't know how much you can do otherwise before 2027. You can pass things, but you do wanna, I do think keeping the date of 2027 in mind is important.
Right, and the exemptions under the current programs run through the end of 26,
No, July,
July of 20.
yes, and they have to be finished with construction by 2029.
Senator Ross.
Sorry, I just missed. So the regional plans are, regional planning commissions are done with their plans by 2026. Where did the 2027 come from?
Well, it's December 31st, 2026.
Oh, yeah, okay, so, okay, thank you.
January 1, yeah.
Senator McCormick.
I'm not changing the subject, I'm reinventing this. Well,
That's a lead that suggests you're changing.
no, well, I'm going to run go afield back.
Yeah.
3 of the members of this committee also serve on finance.
Sure.
Which deals with, well, also utilities. We deal with utilities, so we deal there with Act 248, which
Section.
is, no. Act 248. That's,
Section 248.
well, the utilities, the Act 250 for utilities.
Section
Section, oh.
6, we know,
And 3 members of finance also serve on economic development.
Okay, so we got a next. We were discussing yesterday the aesthetics criteria. And I articulated, no one actually disagreed with me, that if you're going to say this should not go here because it's too ugly, or this should not go here because it interferes with something that's already here that's beautiful and ought to be maintained, that if you're gonna stop something, then you have an obligation to answer the question, if not here, then where? And we discussed the possibility of mapping, because we're mapping, in other words, of including in the mapping what areas are suitable for, in this case, we're talking about solar collector arrays. But rather than just going on an ad hoc case by case determination that this site is not suitable, wouldn't it be good to know in advance what sites are?
So to your point,
Could we on this map include sites suitable for green energy facilities?
page 65, line 16. Great. Energy elements. Okay,
so.
more or less.
It's already required,
That's already been.
it's already a thing, but you are raising an important point, I mean,
Yeah.
this is a significant shift. These maps hopefully will have more information and indication where thing is desirable to build certain things. If you'd like to do additional work specifically related to 248, I think you would need to build in additional language than what's here. But yes, we're currently, regional plans are supposed to have some indication, it's not very strong. But also towns do have the energy planning that they do in their municipal, that they can opt into doing in their municipal plans currently. Which
And so
addresses
here's that, this has become mandatory in this model. It's no longer a town, an LNG element in the certified town plan. If you want, it becomes a requirement.
No, that's not in here.
That's what's going on the bottom of page 65.
So,
But you know, where it's like listing things,
right, so most of that is existing language, it's changing a may to including.
yeah.
I don't think it's super strong language and I didn't draft it, so you should probably hear more about it, but I think it's just. An energy element has already been required. I think it's sort of attempting to firm up those requirements because currently it's vague on what is actually required in the energy element. But I don't think it's generally a very strong requirement.
It doesn't say shall,
It does not say shall.
which we often told means pretty much nothing.
Well,
I don't think I've said that, but okay.
I think may is more of the, and shall is the.
It doesn't say shall, but it's been.
so I'm sorry to sort of jump in, so that, I mean. Kind of referring to your point, that there's language that goes after you're talking about and how adequate it is. I think it's not, it doesn't exactly address what.
Just the committee looking at the language with that, through that lens, with that question.
This is also appearing in the section on a regional plan, not a town, a regional.
Right.
But a regional plan must have something then every municipality, that's the container for all the municipal plans. So does that mean if the regional plan won't be able to satisfy this condition unless they ensure that every municipality is also fulfilling? I don't know. Okay.
No.
Okay, it would make sense to me that they could approve a regional plan that had holes in it, like, oh, there's these 3 municipalities have no energy elements. So how the RPC itself gets certification?
Nobody gets certification for an RPC anyway.
Now, what about, aren't we talking about the new environmental board was changed?
Sure, but this language isn't being changed very much, so if you'd like to do that, you could, but I don't know if that's the intent of, I don't think that's the intent of this language.
Okay. Well. So we're,
And energy
Sure.
element is not necessarily an expensive energy element addressing every single municipality, it does not say that.
right, well, thank you, Senator McCormick, for raising the question. Here's a place. Listen, we try to make things clearer.
It doesn't end actually.
This language was proposed by the regional planning commission, if you have additional intent. You should include it, but this is their language that they have provided, I cannot speak specifically to their intent.
Let's keep that after.
So I'm looking clock, I know you need, how much more time do you have?
You till quarter after.
Okay. Great, thank you, so let's keep cruising, and I put an official sticky on that page.
So the other language that's in here, is what is, I think, a direct reflection of their report, which is the consistency of terms used in future land use maps, so starting on page 67. In addition to the already required elements, they've included this specific, land use categories that every map should include, and then definitions for those categories. Although I did hear Charlie Baker say yesterday, I think that they need perhaps more level of specificity. Potentially, but there's definitions on how they should categorize land. Consistently, and what some of the elements of those are. So. It does include in their planned growth area. Sorry, what page is that? Planned growth area is, on page 68. I did also hear him say yesterday that the rural conservation category. It sounds like they are envisioning that as tier 3. I hadn't really heard that before necessarily, so you may wanna consider if those things. If you want those things to line up. How do you want those things to line up?
One piece that I think have kind of talked a little bit about with this bill review, and I think it features some of the conflicting tension that you're experiencing. Is that we have had recommendations from the NRB and they had a consensus package, but then we have individuals within that who have further detailed personal or specific recommendations. And my question to you as our chair is, I think, our council has made a very good point about a recommendation we heard from the regional planning commissions, and I agree, in fact, with that starting point. However, it does break the concept that we seem to have come into this with, which is that the NRB recommendations are a package deal. And I don't necessarily want to advocate for a specific position of one subset of the NRB until we feel that we're opening that door.
Yeah, so, thanks, right, but don't break the container. As best I know, all the people on that board are still discussing these things, as a group. So they're not just stepping out on their own without. But if words being explicit all the way along has been, like. There's the reason you said it was a package, so if someone advances something as we work on it. Just by virtue of the fact that it was high level before, now we're actually trying to express it in front of the 12. That expression actually is kind of a deal breaker for us.
Yeah.
To keep our eye on that.
Okay, so that is one thing I would like us to start doing, having that category under tier 3, just kind of start from that point if we could.
So this is, so continuing, there is still language again proposed from the regional planning commissions. You should probably hear from them on a lot of this.
So what page you?
I'm loosely on page 73 and continuing on from there. Because the rest of this language is how the municipal plans should then be updated, and I haven't necessarily fully digested all of it yet. So then the final segment of this bill starts on page 78. And I believe goes through the end. So the last segment of this bill repeals 24 VSA chapter 76A, which is our currently existing state designation program. And so this is the language that reflects the designated area report. I know you got the beginning of that yesterday. Had you gotten the overview of that report previously?
We had like the 7-minute version.
Just yesterday?
ago.
Oh.
We had like a 12-minute version yesterday, so we ran out of. We didn't know that Mr. Cotton had to leave, so.
Yeah, so high level, currently, we have 5 existing state designated areas. There's 3 core areas and 2 add-on areas. You spent some time working on this last session, so the 3 core areas are the downtowns, the village centers, and the new town centers. Towns can then, if they have one of those designated areas, they can add on a neighborhood development area and or a growth center. There was this big report that the department and their facilitators have been working on for the last however long, and their report is to update and streamline the designation program. All 5 of the existing designations were added at different times and have different requirements and have slightly different benefits. They do have a chart, I think you have seen with the requirements and the benefits for these designations. What the report came out with is that there should be more benefits for less work, making it easier for municipalities to achieve the benefits. And so starting with section 35 on page 78 and going on, it repeals the existing designations and establishes 3 new designations. It combines the 3 core designations into one, what I believe they're calling a center. I don't know, they've changed it a few times. I think they're calling it a center. So any municipality can apply for a center. depending on, and what it sets up is a benefits ladder. A step and a ladder, so depending on how many requirements they achieve. Sets what level of what step on the ladder they reach, and that correlates to how many benefits are available to that community. I believe the first level for center is automatic designation through the regional planning commission. And so that is one of the other changes in this, is that a municipality doesn't necessarily have to even apply for the designation, there's automatic designation. Where in the regional plan, if it's mapped as one of these areas, they're automatically designated, so they automatically reach the first step.
It's like frequent flyer groups.
No, I don't think so, I think it's just like a free coupon, here you go,
Green,
you out of town. It's on a map. Incentives,
green stamps.
sure,
Green, why, but. You designate something and. You get something in exchange for it. You get to head of the line, you get to, they'll open for you on Sundays,
yep,
knock on the door.
yes. I don't know. So there is there's a step and a designated ladder in here, or yeah. The other two new designations are neighborhood and tier 1 planned growth area. So these are add-on designations. Around the center, a neighborhood can be added, and it is somewhat similar to what a designated neighborhood development area was. And then planned growth area is the area that can be exempt from Act 250. So under their proposal in this language, you have to get a designation of center before you can get the Act 250 exemption designation. And again, I did draft a proposal, there's a House bill that has most of this language in it, but this is an updated version of language that they sent a couple days ago, so I haven't. Fully digested it, but it still uses the state downtown board, although they're changing it to the community revitalization board. And adding some additional members, and then the foundation again is mapping by the regional planning commission and their future land use maps. Those maps then go to the state board for review and approval. And then yeah, and I can't necessarily speak to what the other details in here are that they have changed, so. That's the rest of this bill though, is the new designation program and how it will function.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, probably not, it's readable. Right. But it's a spell seems out step 1, step 2, step 3, definitions. Okay. And that takes us through building administration. Division.
Oh yeah, and then at the end, there's some stuff about the tax credits associated with the downtowns, so it's raising the cap on the quantity of the amount of tax credits that are available annually from 3 million to 5 million. I think that is in the governor's budget. But yeah, this last 40 pages could be a bill in itself. I mean, I haven't fully digested, it is a bill in the House, but it's so.
Big,
But
reform of the designation program.
so this is one of the, before I go, like this is. There's a concept in here that is one of the conflicts you have to resolve, which is the designated area report is proposing. The Act 250 exemption, and it's somewhat similar to what is in the first part of the bill, but it's a little bit different. So it's this planned growth area, they're using the same term. The first part of the bill just requires that a town come forward with their proposed area and has the bylaws that match those requirements in order to get the Act 250 exception area. this last half of the bill requires that the town already have the designation, they go to the state board. And then. It does also require them to go to the environmental review board, but I do think it has different. Requirements. So,
So that whole thing, this review board, state board, piece is a little murky.
yes, so again, I know that these two things lined up, I didn't draft them
Yeah.
to line up. I just included all the language that was sent to me, so, I don't have concrete suggestions on how you line up, other than I think you need to decide what your intent is on how this program can function.
Right. Well, so I'm imagining it being a painful experience to draft stuff that it's being chipped in from here to there, and it's not necessarily you writing a coherent story from beginning to end. So I appreciate that you're tolerant of receiving all these bits and pieces and doing the best we can to assemble them. And now at least we have a place to work on them. And before we were just talking about them, and that was. I mean, useful for a while, but now we need to get past conversation.
So regardless of whether or not I've constructed all this, there are holes in the NRB report that you need to fill with policy decisions. So some decisions have been made in this report, but the option is still before you to actually make a permanent decisions. So.
Great. Well, I'll ask that everyone try to really sit down and read this start to finish over the long weekend, and then put ourselves in a better position to start doing get closer to line by line. So wait,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am happy to dive into this and really spend some time with it this weekend when I am not working. Which is Sunday afternoon. So I have a feeling though that we're going to get just a wave of changes that will be recommended to us or in additions by the stakeholders that have been identified. Can you tell me what the timeline is and if we're going to be getting those over the weekend, when we can expect another draft, and if we're gonna get another draft?
I'm not thinking we'll see another draft for something like a week. And it's sort of good, it's not like a talk to all the parties and said, okay, so here's a calendar. But that I know conversations are, so what I've asked the
Yes.
group that generated the report was the driver for much of this, is to. As you think about things and figure them out and sort things out and have new language to propose to us or edits to this. Please, continue try to let each other know and work as a group, continue to work as a group, really. So that when things arrive here, not like, oh, we just can rubber stamp what arrived, but that we know that we're seeing consensus recommendation as opposed to starting to see conflicting
Exactly.
recommendations. And eventually, I'm sure we'll surface some things that are in conflict with that.
Okay.
And I'm not, I'm thinking like a weekend now, maybe we will collect enough stuff in a quiet sort of way. Go to a next draft. The other thing is overall, House and Senate leadership and different committees that are all working on this. The House and Senate leadership are working, and by next Friday, we'll have a clearer roadmap for how things are.
Okay.
So we are in this sort of
Bit of a.
awkward place, reminds me of David reference, Ed Sullivan Show, little stick, they put plates on top and start spinning them. We're starting to have more and more plates spinning but the plates never crack when the Ed Sullivan Show.
They never did.
We'll be okay.
Well, so I believe the answer to my question is I will spend some time on Sunday reading this.
But
And
no matter what happens, this will be useful, correct? Because I think. Thank you, Mr. Councilman.
thank you, Jan.
I always play the same piece of music.
What's that?
Play the spinners, they always play the same piece of music. Next door.
So we've been sitting for an hour and 20 minutes. How about if we take just really, like 5 minute recess?
Okay.
Let